In the great librarium on Earth, there is a book as large as a table. Within its ancient covers are entered the names and the honours of the 1,000 chapters of the Legions Astartes. It is a great tome that records the history of the Space Marines since the first founding at the dawn of Imperial history. Upon its cracked leather is gilded the title of the most honoured record in the Imperium, Index Astartes, the Ultramarines. Chapter Ultramarine of the Legions Astartes was founded during the interlegionary wars of the 32nd millennium. Tradition places the date at 400-1001 M32, the very first day of the millennium. The chapter is therefore over 8,000 years old, making it a chapter of the third founding. Upon its inception, the Emperor gave the chapter the number 13, formerly the number of one of the traitor legions, now banished to the Eye of Terror, without number and name and with all honours erased. Along with their number, the new chapter received the gene sperm, implant zygotes, rituals, and other paraphernalia of indoctrination previously entrusted to the banished 13th Legion. The chapter's founder was Rabute Guilliman, whose bones now lie in the reclusium on the crag. The Ultramarines were incepted as a mobile legion, based in a vast fighting fleet. The Legion distinguished itself in the very first tyrannic war of the 34th millennium, and subsequently in many other major conflicts. Following the last tyrannic war, which ended in the year 745 of the current millennium, the chapter was entrusted with the overlordship of what is now their home. This is the planet Macragge in the Vendors system. With the possession of the planet went the title of Imperial Commander and Lord Macragge, as well as the right to be honoured as Adeptus Astartes, and to be addressed by those of equal rank as Adept. Both titles are reserved exclusively for the Adeptus Terra. They are only used by Marine chapters which are also planetary governors. Macragge is an inhospitable planet. Over 4/5 of its surface is covered with deep dust oceans. Although they are uninhabitable by man, the oceans are a major source of protein-rich microorganisms, as well as larger shrimp-like creatures called dust krill. These are farmed by giant factory vessels called dust harvesters. This provides not only the basis of the inhabitants' diet, but also Macragge's sole exportable commodity. The remaining fifth of the world is solid rock, rising above the dust oceans in two mainland masses called Westernland and Gullimanos. The fortress monastery of the Ultramarines lies in the Marabar Plains on the continent of Westernland, far north of the equator. Macragge has a breathable atmosphere whose oxygen content sours during the warmer months due to the activities of the oceanic bacteria. The prevailing temperatures are extremely hot during daylight, falling to below zero at night. Moisture content is almost zero within the areas bordered by the dust seas, and very low even in the continental interiors. Both rain and vapour clouds are unknown, although clouds of airborne dust sometimes obscure the deeper oceanic regions. Sealed suits must be worn within the proximity of the oceans to avoid lethal desiccation. Vegetation is present only in very simple forms. Primitive fungi grow beneath the ground, opening small cracks and fissures and even living within the crystalline structure of the rock itself. This causes spectacular colouring of the normally red rock formations. The best known examples of this are the rainbow caves in the equatorial regions of Gillimanos. Although initially devoid of higher life forms, ambles and crawlers, which were imported for experimental purposes, have escaped and established themselves on both continents. The chapter has fought in every tyrannic war to date. The tyrannic wars are wars fought against Tyranid hive fleets. The Ultramarines were one of the 3 legions which took part in the final assault on Hive Fleet Behemoth, year 745 of the current millennium. This is the only known record of the destruction of a Hive fleet. Although now based firmly on Macragge, the chapter's fleet remains in good repair. The space-going expertise of the Ultramarines is used to good effect, attacking and destroying Orc raiding ships and Eldar pirates. Macragge's hyperspatial locality on the eastern rim of the Imperium means it is a useful supply base and jumping off point for Imperial servants, moving beyond the psychic light of the Astronomicon. In the current year 987 of the current millennium, the Ultramarines are led by Imperial Commander Adeptus Marnius Calgar, the 4th Lord Macragge. Following a skirmish against Hive Fleet Perseus in the year 976, Calgar lost all 4 limbs, as well as large areas of body tissue and his left eye. Now fitted with bionic replacements, he is more machine than man. The chapter's last action against the Tyranids was a skirmish with Hive Fleet Perseus in the year 982, before it drifted out of the Imperium and disappeared. The Masters of the Order are important officials. Some perform a purely administrative role. Most, however, are also warriors, and many are heroic figures held in awe by the Order's young neophytes. A mastership may be held in conjunction with the captaincy of a company. Currently, only Captain Esata also holds such a post. He is captain of the 2nd Company, Strength is Power, as well as the Master of Ordnance. It is not unusual for a mastership to be held by a non-brother, i.e. someone who is not a Space Marine. In the past, masters have been ordinary humans, or even morphs, or half-humans. Although falling within the feudal jurisdiction of the Lord of Macragge, non-brethren are not Marines. Some, such as those covered by the general category of staff, are slaves, owned by the Order. The following officers are currently as indicated on the chart shown. Masters are entitled to wear the ceremonial floor-length collared coat in the colour shown on the chart. Some masters have been known to wear these into battle. The collar badges are woven in gold and are replicated on the master's powered armour. The cloak of a commander is a valuable heirloom. It is made from the fur of an unknown alien creature. This is primarily a golden brown colour speckled with white. The lining and hood are scarlet. Except for the 1st Company, each company is led by a captain aided by a lieutenant. Each company is divided into 10 squads of a sergeant, a senior trooper, and 8 ordinary troopers. Within each company, sergeants have seniority according to their squad number, the 1st squad being the most senior, and the 10th squad being the least senior. In battle, the 10-man squad is often divided into 2 5-man fighting units under the command of the sergeant and senior trooper. Every company also has its own chaplain. Chaplains are members of individual companies holding a spiritual rank, equivalent to the company's captain. They have no military rank. In battle, they fight as individuals, exhorting their brothers to greater deeds of valour. The company's honour badge is painted on the Marine's shoulder armour above the chapter badge, and occasionally on the helmet as well. Companies 1 to 9 are organised identically. All troops are trained to perform in any type of squad. The distinction is a tactical one rather than being indicative of different training or ability, although special assault squads are always made up of the most experienced Marines. The chapter maintains a large number of fighting vehicles in its extensive workshops on Macragge, as well as a permanent force on board the fleet. The latter are stored in dropships and can be mobilised as swiftly as the Marines themselves. Normal squad level action will vary according to the situation. A great deal of training revolves around small action combat within and without spacecraft. An example, in the year 982, the 4th Company, Purity of Purpose, was involved in a fleet action against Orc forces in the Qian system. The Orc flagship was forced down onto Womo, Qian 4, by fire from chapter vessels, the Guardian and the War Shield. The 4th Company was immediately launched in dropships from their station on the Ultramarines flagship, Guilliman. The heavy weapons squads took up position behind a rock outcrop to provide covering fire. The special assault squad, known as the Scalpers, rushed towards the fallen craft under the cover of their comrades' fire. They were met by the bodyguard of the Orc Admiral and thrown back after heavy fighting. Seeing the initial wave falter, the captain in command, Ty Newman, led the remaining assault squads, known as the Hunters, into the ship. Following brief fighting, the remaining crew were driven out before the guns of the Marine Reserve, consisting of the remaining tactical squads, known as the Flayers. Marine losses were 4 men of the Special Assault Squad, 12 other Marines, and Captain Newman, who died fighting the Orc Admiral. Medical staff are regular apothecarian surgeons and doctors. Individuals undertake tours of duty as required, usually serving for the duration of a campaign. Only full brethren are sent on these dangerous missions. They therefore have Marine profiles and equipment. Field medics hold honorary ranks of Captain, Lieutenant, Sergeant, Senior Medic and Medic. The last 2 are equivalent to Senior Trooper and Trooper. However, these ranks are far less formal than within the fighting chapters, and a campaigning force may have only 2 or 3 layers of command. The medical staff have the use of 2 specially provisioned heavy hoverers. These have a vehicle-mounted medikit, auto-drive, auto-fac, ejector seats, and a communicator. They are armed with 3 forward-firing bolt guns and a turret-mounted multi-melter. As with medical personnel, a chapter's field communications staff varies according to the mission. Communications officers, Astro Paths, and Psychers all fall within this section. The primary role of Psychers is to maintain interstellar and interplanetary communications. On the battlefield, Psychers provide psychic report as required. All communications personnel are drawn from the Librarium staff. The Librarium is the nerve centre of any marine fortress. The 3 groups outlined differ in the following respects. Communications officers are brethren, i.e. fully initiated Marines, who have technical expertise as well as battle experience. A communication officer will usually have held the rank of at least lieutenant before retraining in the communication role. Communication officers are in charge of all aspects of communications as well as the psychic members of the force. A communication officer may also perhaps be a psyker. Astro Paths are Imperial servants, members of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, posted to Marine units as part of the Imperium's complex communications network. An Astropath may hold office within the chapter, but is not a Marine and is ultimately subject to the will of the Adeptus Terra. Psykers. Some Psykers are judged sufficiently strong enough to remain whole rather than suffer the transformation into an Astropath. Such men are recruited into the various Imperial services. Some are recruited by the Marines and undergo the biochem ritual which turns them into Marines. Some chapters integrate Psykers into company level, but the Ultramarines place all such individuals within the Librarian. That is not to say they are unused to combat. Psykers perform a vital role as psychic support troops for their brother Marines. The famous characters of the Ultramarines. The Imperial commander, Marneus Calgar. Calgar was amongst human prisoners rescued from Hive Fleet Locust in the year 947 of the current millennium. His age was then estimated at 14 years based on translucency tests of molar eruption and epiphyseal fusion of the long bones. This makes Calgar 44 years old at the time of writing. Calgar was subjected to the usual tissue compatibility and psychological test, passed with flying colours, and was recruited into the order as a neophyte in the armoury. Calgar took his vows in the year 951, and was fully ordained as a Brother Marine in 954. He quickly rose through the ranks and was elected Master of the Household in the year 973 and Commander in 977, following the death of Deacon, the third Lord Crag. Following a severe mauling in 976, Calgar has not taken part in any actions personally. His bionic hands are actually very complex devices, incorporating a variety of weapons and other gadgetry, including Jokaero digital weapons, knives, lights, and communicators. As Calgar no longer takes the field, he does not normally wear powered armour, although he does take the precaution of carrying a conversion field. Calgar hates Tyranids. Lieutenant Commander Charlie. Charlie has commanded the Ultramarines in battle ever since Calgar suffered his terrible injuries. Lee was taken from Ulmor as a child in 945. The chapter was engaged upon its pursuit of Hive Fleet Locust at the time. The population of Ulmor was largely wiped out by the Tyranids before the Marines' arrival and the subsequent Battle of Ulmor. Those few inhabitants surviving the conflict were screened for recruitment and resettled in the Rastaman system. Lee rose to full captaincy in 981 and became Lieutenant Commander in 986, following the death of Lieutenant Commander Muk Mayun in a flyer accident over the Irison Sea, the Dust Ocean, lying to the west of Westernland. Charlie is noted for his extreme fits of temper and uncompromising punishment of failure and disobedience. It was Charlie who ordered the ritual decimation and disbanding of honours from the 5th Company, following an unsuccessful mission at Grok Station 27 in the Dolmen Chain, 986. Charlie wears powered armour and carries a conversion field in addition. He favours hand-to-hand weapons and typically carries a power glove, a chainsword, a bolt pistol, hand flamer, and supply of melter bombs. Chief Librarian Astropath Ilian Nastase. Ilian was born to a human mother on the world of Badab, following the expulsion of the tyrants there in 912 of the current millennium. His father was an unknown Eldar mercenary. The youngster was gene tested at birth in accord with the law and subsequently taken into Imperial custody. He was reared in the government compound by the Imperial Mission, which took over the running of Badab after the war. Along with other potential psychics, he undertook the journey to Earth in the year 924, where further tests led to the eventual soul binding the next year. Following that point, Nastase was recruited into the Administratum as an Astro Path. He attained the ranks of Secundus, Prefect, and eventually rose to hold consulship for 4 years, helping to run the Adeptus Terra's advisory senate to the Master of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. Following this, he undertook 4 years' service with the fleet, a further 2 years with the Dark Angels Marines, and was appointed as Chief of the Macragge Interstellar Communications Link under the jurisdiction of the Ultramarines in the year 965. Nastase is now 76 years old, but, thanks to his parentage, shows few signs of age. Nastase usually wears powered armour in combat, and he carries a personal force sword and laser pistol. Master of the Apothecarian, Hulm Singer. Singer was taken from Crow's World following a brief campaign against Eldar pirates in the system. He undertook initiation at the relatively early age of 14, and began to study medicine after 2 years combat training and 1 year of active service. Proving a skilled administrator as well as a first-class surgeon, Hulm gained full mastership in the year 986. He has a cute, if a rather unnerving love of chainsaws, having the idea firmly set in his mind that this is the only way to remove troublesome armour when attempting to deal with a wound. Singer wears his powered armour, and he usually carries a bolt gun, knife, and bolt pistol. He also carries the following equipment: a bioscanner, a medipack, a rad counter, stimulants, web solvents, 2 suspensors, and his personal chainsword. The Master of the Ships, Christo Columbine. Christo comes from a lesser navigator family whose fortunes have declined somewhat over the last couple of 100 years. Faced with family bankruptcy, Christo sold himself into slavery and was bought by the Ultramarines. The position of slave is not an especially dishonourable one for a navigator. Columbine is accorded respect, but is expected to fulfill his role to the best of his abilities. Christo was too old to undergo initiation when he joined the Ultramarines. The upper limit is 18, subject to the individual. 16 is usual. Christo is now 40 years old. In the year 979, he joined the coordinating division of the Librarium and took over the Master of Ships in 982, the first recorded instance of a non-brother holding the post in this particular chapter. His heritage has left him spindly, and his hands and feet are large and webbed. The Master of the Forge, Samuel Dexter. Dexter was born to one of the chapter's female slaves, and according to a tradition that all such children belong to the chapter, underwent tissue compatibility and psychological tests at the age of 12. Dexter was formally recruited as a neophyte at the age of 14, and underwent initiation to full brethren at 16 in the year 966. His long study of runic manuals has instilled a wide understanding of robotics. It was Dexter who created many of the special features of Commander Calgar's bionic limbs. Dexter's pursuit of robotic research has caused friction with Captain Esata, who would sooner see the effort expended in replacing dreadnoughts lost during the skirmish of Burbek's asteroids against the Orcs in the year 985. Master of the Ordnance Captain Qian Esata. Esata was recruited from a Hive-World street gang during a recruiting mission in 950. He was 13 years old when captured, and following tissue compatibility and psychology tests, was earmarked for partial cerebral reprogramming. Although successful, the process has not entirely removed his rough edge. A ruthless warrior with a naturally alert temperament and rather brash manner. He is highly suspicious of psychers and regards Nastase with more than a little trepidation. The Master of the Household, Femor Dower. This is the most highly regarded of all the masterships of the Order. The Master of the Household is responsible for the day-to-day running of the Fortress Monastery, acting as a private secretary to the commander as well as administrating such mundane things as food, hygiene, repair, construction, slave relations, and non-brethren recruitment. This is a hard but rather boring task. It is seen as providing the necessary training for future commanders. Femor is already 45 years old and has occupied his current post since the Perseus engagements in which he fought valiantly. Femor is an uncompromising administrator and businessman whose combat heritage is often forgotten by younger and less respectful brethren. The Master of Sanctity, Tao Taka Chow. The Master of Sanctity is responsible for all the religious aspects of the Order. Tao Taka Chow must ensure that the chapter's chapels and religious shrines are maintained, and that the moral life of the chapter is sound. Although a Marine of great devotion and irreproachable past, Tao is not a cleric, and not an official of the Imperial cult. The performance of ritual and other religious duties are undertaken by the Reclusiarch Cabera. Tao's duties are purely secular, although he is ultimately responsible for making sure the Reclusiarch and chaplains are doing their duty, and that the chapter remains beyond moral reproach. Tao is almost 80 years old, and is the oldest of all the current masters. He has not fought in battle since the attack on Hive Fleet Locust in the year 947. Reclusiarch Leo Cabera. Leo Cabera is not a Marine, but a priest of the Imperial cult sent to ministrate to the spiritual needs of the Ultramarines. He does not fight in battle, although his famous speeches and blood-curdling threats of retribution have probably contributed to winning more battles than the average army. The first company has no captain. The captain of the second company is Qian Esata. The remaining captains are also subject to frenzies. Each of the 10 companies has a lieutenant. These are Lieutenant Butt of the first company, Lieutenant Dieter of the second company, Lieutenant Mulligak of the third company, Lieutenant Puel of the fourth company, Lieutenant Weiss of the fifth company, Lieutenant Hajadin of the sixth company, Lieutenant Andron of the seventh, Lieutenant Zaus of the eighth, Lieutenant Edu of the ninth, and Lieutenant Vincenio of the 10th. Each of the 10 companies has its own religious leader called a chaplain. Chaplains are responsible for the spiritual welfare of their company. It is the chaplain that leads the daily prayers, performs the necessary rituals, and makes sacrifices and maintains the company's chapel and cult regalia. The chaplain's own spiritual direction comes from the Reclusiarch of the Order. This is Leo Cabera, High Preacher of the Imperial Cult. In battle, the chaplains are always ready to show their faith by deed, as well as by word. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, then please be sure to like and subscribe, or even leave a comment. I always try my best to reply to them all. You can even now support the channel by joining the Patreon page, details of which are in the description below. Thank you again for watching, and always remember to drill your barrels.